So hello everyone. My name is Aishman Nag and I am from Go Junction. And today we have our special guest, Mr. Vijay Chandola. Hello Vijay.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me here.
Okay. So thank you Vijay for for coming. So Vijay, why don't you give our audience a small brief about yourself and about your job role?
Sure. So, I currently work with Axis Bank as a product manager. So I've been working with Axis Bank since past more than I think 16 months now. Uh, Predominantly, I've been working on the delivery and technology side of it, wherein my job is to first define what is it that the customer's pain point is, and then writing those solutions that we devise into executable user stories. Just have discussions with the design team so that we can create mock-ups and then eventually put it on Jira and give it to the development team so that they can ship it in the sprints in which they would be delivering those user stories. So that is like a brief about what is it that I do. I'm talking very specific here because if I talk about generic gyan, that you will get everywhere outside as well. So this is specifically that I do. So there are a lot of other aspects of product management as well, but mine is limited to that because that is how it happens in the larger organizations. Before that, I have worked with Yes Bank again as a product manager in the digital payments merchant acquiring team, wherein I was working more as a business product manager. And our team basically helped the bank to grow from having some 4,000 to 5,000 merchants to 20x by 85,000 merchants when I left the bank. So this is what I have done post doing my MBA at IIM Udaipur. So that's a quick background.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Vijay. You have like worked for like series of companies and product manager, and also you have like had like like certain experiences of yourself, like not just as a working professional, but definitely as a student as well. So why don't you give like our audience a brief background, like how you overcame basically all those hurdles and you reached this particular stage?
Sure. I think that'll be quite an interesting story to tell. So I was born and brought up in Uttarakhand. So it's a very remote place in Uttarakhand. Even if, let's say, I kind of describe the place geographically, it is around some 230 kilometers away from the nearest railway station. And when I was studying back in early 2000s, we didn't have electricity or anything of that sort at our place. But thanks to my mother, who was very particular about our studies, our education, we didn't land up being someone who couldn't come out of that place. So we studied really hard, specifically under the guidance of my mother, and then I did my engineering from Pantnagar University, and that kind of became a 0 to 1 moment for me, because that is where I realized that I would have been great at my school or at my place, but being good at that specific area is not enough, right? So I saw a lot of people around me who were brilliant, who had been from a very different, diverse background, and I was humbled by the kind of experience these people had, the kind of skills that these people had. And this is where a journey that started within me, which led me to rediscover myself. And so that was the place I realized that I need to do an MBA. I need to be at a place where I can connect with like-minded people and do something different for my career. So I did my engineering. I worked as a business analyst for around close to 3 to 4 years, and after working there, I kind of got into IIM Udaipur. In IIM Udaipur, so if I talk about my professional journey, I don't think that during my MBA I had realized that I'll be doing an MBA. I'll be doing I'll be starting my career in product management. But what led me to finally get into the product management is that I used to read a lot, and I used to read a lot of business books, a lot of books specifically in the biography genre. If you name a random biography of a business person, most likely I must have read it. So that is how it is. So I read about Steve Jobs. I read about Brian Chesky. I read about a lot of other people in Silicon Valley who have built some of the biggest startups, some of the biggest companies of today's date. And somehow I felt that the people who have built those organizations, they have one thing in common. They knew how to build a very strong product, and which is where I kind of got some sort of an influence that, if I want to be in a similar boat, I have to be someone who should be building products for my own organization where I would be working. So that was an early influence. So when I got a pre-placement offer from the company where I was doing my internship, again, which is Yes Bank. Although I was not hired for a product role, the the ask, at least from my side, was very clear that eventually, if not today, maybe after 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, I would want to be in a product company, I would want to be in a product team, because that is what was the end goal for me.
Thank you so much for that insightful info.
Yeah.
Vijay, as you said that you had a prior experience in an engineering company, as a business analyst. So, did you take a leave, or did you resign from that company while you were preparing for CAT, or were you preparing for CAT and doing the work side by side?
Yeah, I think that is a very good question. So by the time it was around some 4 years, so about the 4th year in my organization, I felt that I am really happy with what I'm doing, and I would want to continue in the same company, maybe at a better role. And that's the reason I took a sabbatical. So I was working with Tata Consultancy Services, where the sabbaticals are pretty normal. So I thought that this is a very good company to work with. This is a very good role to work with, and I would want to again come back and then start working again. So that was my thought. But when you go to your college to do an MBA, specifically when it is a good college to be. So specifically when it is a good college to be, what happens is, if you have your mind open, you would be amazed to see what kind of opportunities you have out there. Okay. And if you are going there with a very close mind that, I am a person who has worked in so-and-so industry for so many years, and I want to continue there, and my only goal is to upskill myself, then you might be limiting yourself. Because there would be a lot of things that you could have learned if you have had an open mind. So thankfully, when I went there, when I saw people around, I realized that, while I would want to go back to the companies, let me first learn as if, I have nothing to lose. Okay. And this is where, I realized a lot of things. I learned a lot of things that I could not have learned if I would have had that completely closed mind that I have a company. Or let's say I am coming from a sabbatical and I would go back to that company. So let me limit my learning to only those specific things that will help me at a later stage in my career in that specific company only. So I took a sabbatical, but I kept my mind open. I, did my internship in financial industry. I realized that, I have to be at a place where I can build products, consumer internet products, not at a place where I would be, servicing a different client. And once I got a PPO, I resigned from the company and we parted our ways.
So that's lovely to hear. In relation to your question, somewhat, I would like to ask you this, that there are a bunch of people who have a work experience of, let's say, 4 years, but somehow maybe after straight away joining a company after doing their bachelor's in engineering or any sort of degree, they have suppose a work ex of 4 years or 5 years. So in your case, you said that you like to read a lot. But a lot of people, they somehow, after 4-5 years, they just feel that, okay, education is done for me right now, and let's just stick to what I have right now. So what will be your motivational mantra that, that can push those kind of work ex people, basically, who give up after 4 years?
So I was reading a very famous quote by a person. I've forgotten the name right now, so I read it on LinkedIn. So what the person said is that your knowledge, at least in today's context, because knowledge is traveling so fast, that your knowledge will become half in next 5 years, because your knowledge is getting outdated so fast. It is not 70s or 80s where the knowledge used to be there for a longer period of time. So right now, if I talk about the way we do business, the way we think about solutions, the way we think about designs, right? So all of that is changing very, very fast. So by the time, if let's say you don't learn anything, if you don't go through your books, if you don't go through the courses, and you don't talk to people, you don't have those experiences, it is very sure that, by the time, if you don't do all of these activities, then by the time, those 4 or 5 years have been passed, your knowledge will actually decrease. So in a way, if you're not reading, if you're not keeping yourself up to date with what is happening out there in the industry, then what will happen is that, you will lose the touch, and you will basically become someone, who is out of context in the industry. So it is an ever evolving industry, and if there are people, so it doesn't matter if you have studied, let's say worked for a year or 2 year, or let's say 10 years or 20 years, learning is something which will remain constant, remain relevant. If you don't do that, that is where you will stop growing, at least in your careers. So my thought process is very clear on this. Specifically, as I'm talking about it from my experience of mentoring a lot of students, the moment you start thinking that your studies are over, everything is done, that means your growth basically is actually done there. You cannot grow further. You cannot go anywhere where you actually can do something. So in all of the companies that are building something, they need people who can not just only apply their experiences, but also think something which is futuristic in nature, and that can only happen if you are keeping yourself up to date. The prime example, again, I'll talk about the example earlier. The knowledge was there, limited to some specific people. Then came the creators economy, right, where people started building their own audience through the giants of like social giants such as LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. And now, after 2 or 3 years, you will see a lot of people getting into something else such as Web3, right? So these things are ever evolving. If you think that this is something what I've learned is constant, then you will become outdated in another like 2 to 3 years.
So it's like keeping yourself up to date, and there should be that hunger in learning. I mean, I think that's
absolutely
that's something that can push a person to grow more. So thank you so much for that answer, Vijay. So Vijay, the next question would be that your life was going in a flow when you were in TCS working as a business analyst, and then how did your life change when you went into your B school?
I think it was a paradigm shift. So a lot of people might not agree with me, but at least for me it was. When I came to IIM Udaipur to do my MBA. So I still remember, so it was a very hard fought battle for me. I had given CAT for 5 times, and I was just wondering, if I can get that one chance to get into one of the good colleges, then I will do this, I will do that, I will do this, I will do that. So I have an entire list of things. So I was very clear that when I came to the college, my entire focus would be on learning things. My entire focus would be on, rebooting myself and my career. So that is what I thought about myself. And, thankfully, I also got into the placement committee of the college, which is what again was a huge learning experience, because when you get into like a committee as demanding as placement committee, you have to really balance your studies, specifically for a person like me, who is really into studies, and you also have to balance the things that you have to do to get those companies in colleges, right? So it not only just pushed me harder to achieve things much bigger, but also it made me believe that the kind of discomfort that I used to feel when I was working at TCS, that if I don't sleep at 11, I'm going to have headache. If I don't wake up at 8 o'clock or let's say 7 o'clock, if rather I wake up at let's say 5 o'clock, then I'm going to have dizziness in my entire day. So all of those notions that I had developed before doing an MBA, all of those notions actually went away. It was as if I was very happy and grateful whenever I used to get a 6 hours sleep. I was like, if I'm getting 6 hours sleep, that means I have so that is like a blessing in disguise for me. So there was so much work, and I was amazed to see that I can push myself this much up. And it made me realize that I have much more potential than what I am actually thinking that I have, and which essentially became a building block for me when I got into my career 2.0 after doing my MBA.
So basically, it has been an eye opener for you, like, and
Absolutely.
great, great, great. So Vijay, a lot of people have this notion, and specifically, I would say some of the freshers
Hmm.
who are the aspiring candidates of, the MBA or PGDM life. So
Hmm.
we know that to get shortlisted for certain B schools, we need an overall profile, like that should get
Yeah.
shortlisted, not just academic wise, but also other activity wise. So,
Absolutely.
what would be like your suggestion, or like what was your deal in this?
I think if I look at it from today's context, this is the best time to be in to create a very diverse profile for yourselves. I know that a lot of people are out there, just like me, who would not have gotten into a lot of extracurricular activities when they were in their colleges and everywhere. But if I talk about today, you know we have so many tools at our disposal that we can basically do anything that we want, in the area of the interest that we have. For example, if let's say I am someone who wants to get into product designs, okay, so if I don't have an experience, so I can literally create a strategy for me to not just learn product design but also implement it at least at a smaller scale. I can literally create a good portfolio for myself on tools such as Figma, where I can create my own designs, my own thought processes, whatever I have learned, in design through some of the certifications that I can do, and then I can showcase to people that hey guys, this is what I have created, and let me know what do you think of it. So I was looking at one of the posts of a person who had created how he can create a design for a company called as Cred, and he put it as a post on LinkedIn, and after a few hours of time, when his post went viral, he actually got an internship from Cred. So this is how things have become, right? So if you are a person who thinks that he doesn't have a right kind of profile or a diverse kind of profile, then just identify what is it that you want to do. Okay, once you have identified, not just learn about it. Learning is something that used to give you points 10 years back. Nowadays, you have to apply it in one way or the other. So there are a lot of no code tools which allow you to create a lot of things which you could not have created, let's say, 10 years back. You can literally create a website, you can literally create campaigns, you can literally create your own payment pages, checkouts, your product pages, everything without writing a single line of code, which is what I actually myself have done for one of my side hustles. So if you are living in an era which is allowing you to do so many things,
Mhm.
then I don't think you should be someone who should be complaining that I don't have the right kind of profile. What should I do? So if you plan it, you can definitely create a profile which can make a real impact on the hiring manager or on the people who would be shortlisting for interviews, MBA or after MBA as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's very well said. But
Yeah.
again, I basically got to know about this thing that he posted on LinkedIn, and he got an offer
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
internship. So again, coming to a question from that only, like how important is LinkedIn nowadays for a profession?
It's a very good question. So everywhere, so I take webinars, I take presentations, I take sessions. So I kind of emphasize on LinkedIn a lot, and the reason is very clear. Okay, so you can use LinkedIn using two different methods. One is inbound, second is outbound. Okay, so when I say it inbound, a very clear metric of understanding whether your LinkedIn profile is correct or not, you should every now and then you should get a message from the HR or talent acquisition managers saying that they are interested in hiring you. Would you like to have a conversation with me? If you are not getting such messages in your inbox, that means your profile is not okay. Your profile is not attracting enough recruiters, enough hiring managers, you know, uh, to to your profile, and it is not compelling them to write an email message to you. Why would they want to do it? They would definitely want to do it because they want to reduce their cost of in their cost that they are spending on the consultants, their cost that they are spending on the job portals, right? So if they find that you are attractive enough, if your profile is so good, they'll directly send you messages. And trust me, that happens with a lot of people who have a profile which attracts people so which kind of attracts those people who are hiring, right? So you can look at very simple three metrics. One is that you are someone who should be searchable. If somebody searches, let's say you are interested in digital marketing, okay, and if I search digital marketer in Pune, and if I do that, if your name is not coming in top 20, 30, 40 people, that means you have to optimize your profile for the keywords that are specific to digital marketing. Number two, your profile should be clickable. Do you have a very attractive title or not? Do you have a good headshot, good profile picture? Do you have your location, your experience mentioned or not, right? Number three is that are you approachable? Does your profile tell you if a person goes to a profile, does it tell the person about that you are a digital marketer and you can be reached out in so and so fashion or not? That is what is your inbound. If these three things you have cleared, that means you can start getting those messages. That is number one. Number two is LinkedIn is an excellent place to get jobs, not the jobs that people are applying to on LinkedIn, because that has very less number of applications and very high number of applicants. So it could be as high as 1:1,000. Okay, and so, but it is a very good place for people to post about hiring. If you look at keywords such as hiring, job hiring, hiring in LinkedIn, so all of those keywords, you will see a lot of people posting about those hirings, and you can directly reach out to these people. And this is a place where a lot of people are posting jobs, but they are not getting as many people as they would want, to reach out to. So this is a place where if you can directly reach out to those hiring managers, I mean, do not just write an interested message and expect them to reach out to you. You have to basically send them a custom message, and you have to specifically talk about why is it that you are a good fit, because a lot of people must be sending them messages, right? So if you do that, that is where you are leveraging LinkedIn, and you would get results which are way different than that of typically a lot of other people get from LinkedIn.
Absolutely. I think that's I think a very useful series of tips that you have given for the people who still basically somehow in a dilemma that how exactly LinkedIn algorithm works, and like why is it so important, and what to do, what not to do. So thank you so much for that. Coming back to the B school experience, Vijay. So what is like your personal suggestion, like along with theoretical knowledge, how important is it to gather the practical knowledge, or like would you give equal weightage to both, or like is there any personal preference from your side?
If I look at so at least from the business side of it, it would be, I think like 40-60 type. 40 is your learning, 60 is your application. And the problem with a lot of students is that they have 90 in theory and 10 in application. Okay, so when I talk about application, so application doesn't mean that you have to have hands-on on everything that you have learned. That's not true. When I say application means, can you give me a use case in which you can apply the learning that you have got? Okay, example is that so I can give you a very simple example of Maslow's hierarchy. Everyone understands what Maslow hierarchy is, provided they have gone through the basic marketing 101 course, right? But when it comes to that Maslow hierarchy, can you use the Maslow's hierarchy for segmentation of your customers in, let's say, 3 different use cases? If I talk about travel industry, how will you segment users using Maslow hierarchy? If I talk about, let's say, food industry, how can you segment users using that specific concept? If I talk about maybe a different industry altogether, then how can you do it? If you can give me the use cases like this, that will actually help me in understanding whether you have the understanding of not just learning, but also applying those learnings into the regular context or not. Another example could be, a lot of people read about this AARRR framework, right? A lot of people say that, okay, AARRR, okay, so this is activation, then this is acquisition, this is activation, then this is retention, this is. So they can tell you what is the concept, but can you tell me in form of funnel, as in first I acquire a user by means of registering him on my website. Then I basically, make him buy something. Okay, once I make him buy something, then I also have to make sure that he likes it. Once he likes it, I also have to make sure that he refers, the product that he liked to other people. And then finally, I also have to make sure that the same person is buying that product again. So can I speak in that fashion for different use cases when I'm explaining that framework to the interviewer? If I can do that, that is where, I have an interest in you. But if you are someone who has just, learned all these concepts and expecting that, those concepts would be applied at a later stage, but first you hire me on the basis of my theoretical knowledge, that's not going to happen. MBA is all about your applications. You would be, dealing in the practical things. And a lot of people, once you will get through in your academic, in your corporate world, you will see a lot of people complaining that, I learned a lot of things in MBA, but now I'm doing a very different thing. So a lot of things that I learned during my MBA are not of any use. That happens because, you learned what you learned in your MBA from a completely theoretical aspect, not from an aspect where you can actually apply those learnings in your corporate world. If you do that, if you think about the use cases consistently, what will happen is that, you will be able to see there's a lot of learnings that you can derive from your MBA, and at the same time you're applying it when after, your MBA, wherever you will be working in.
That's, I think, again, a very insightful answer. So Vijay, again, in relation to this, like it might be a little, tricky question, but the thing is that, again, your personal preference, you have like you have two CVs. So let's say one CV has got like amazing, let's say 9 points and some club activities of the college, and the other one, let's say the person has like 7 point or something, but the person has done like numerous case studies and live projects. So which is more attractive for you?
See, I think every job description is very different. Okay, so I'll give a very simple example of how hiring managers look at the CVs. So if the talent acquisition manager comes to me with 100 CVs, I would ask him to give me maybe 10 CVs to me, so that I can interview at least 10 people, because any day I would do a better job in interviewing 10 people than that of interviewing 100 people. Now, what happens with these 90 people is that their resume just goes through a scan. That scan lasts around 20 to 30 seconds at max per resume. Okay, so when I'm looking at your CV, what happens is that I am looking for those keywords that I have in my mind or in my job description. Okay, so those keywords, so great that you have got good academics, that's fine, but at the same time, if let's say you don't have those keywords that I have in my mind specifically to my JD, then most likely that I'll have an impression that you might be a great academician, but at the same time, what happens is that you might not be a great fit for the role that I'm hiring. Okay, if I talk about academics, so academics are nothing but your shortlisting criteria. What I might do is that I might put up a shortlisting criteria that the GPA has to be 6.5 and above, or GPA has to be, let's say, 7.5 and above. Okay, so now think of it in this fashion. So if I have kept a criteria of 6.5 and above, that means I am ready to consider people who have a 7 GPA, 8 GPA, 9 GPA, or even a person who is topper of the class. Given that he displays all the other qualities that are required to be in a job. Okay, so while the person who has gotten great grades, so the person will obviously have benefits in terms of his understanding of concepts could be much clearer than that of a person who has gotten just a 7 GPA. But that is what should be reflected when they are sitting in an interview, or they are putting something on their resume. If that is not there, then it is always a 50-50. It never works in that fashion that we look at the grades even after we have applied a very simple filter that okay, I'm looking for this kind of grades from the students that are there in college. I hope this answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. So moving on to the next question, Vijay. Till now we have heard great stories about the success that you had, but what about certain failures you think that that had a role in your life, like some sort of a boost, maybe a motivation kind of a thing, like if there's any you have to share?
So I think that's a very good question actually. So I'll not say that that's a failure kind of a thing, but maybe I'll talk about having a fresh perspective to things that kind of changes things for you. So like I mentioned, at the start of this conversation, that I gave CAT for almost 5 times, post which uh, kind of, and I got into the college. So what happens is that uh, so because I was not from a background, okay, where a lot of focus on communication or studies are given. While I was good analytically, I was good at quants, or while I was very good at logical reasoning, I was not so good at the verbal aspect of it. Okay, so naturally, at least in starting, attempts, I did not do very well with verbal. I'm sure that is the problem with a lot of other candidates as well, specifically who are coming from an engineering background, right? So what happened is that I once I gave CAT for at least 4 times consistently, I somewhere felt that if I continue to give CAT in that fashion, the same story will keep on repeating itself, and better, so let me not better focus much on the preparation aspect of it as of now, and focus on my work and my personal profile than that of thinking about my CAT preparation. Okay, so when that happened, naturally, my instinct of reading books kind of came into the forefront. I had kept that hobby also aside because I wanted to prepare for CAT. I was leaving everything aside. I was just focusing on preparing for CAT. Okay, so that 1 year, what I did is that I focused completely on my work, as well as on the lot of on the books that I always wanted to study. I literally went through, I think, more than 40-45 books in that 1 year. Okay, and then so a friend of mine who was preparing for CAT, he eventually ended up being in IIM Ahmedabad. So he came to me just around 1.5 months back, and he said that, Vijay, can you help me with quant, because I know that your quant is good, and in turn I would try to help you with the verbal ability, which was his strength. Okay, and then, like, some 1.5 months back, I started preparing for CAT, and this time my mind was fresh, very different. I didn't have all of those doubts or all of those debts in my mind that I used to have when I used to prepare, because I used to always go from that complex that it is verbal, I don't know it, and I'm not going to go through, I'll not be able to kind of perform here again. Okay, I went with a very clear mind, where I not applied the things using the kind of things that I used to mug, or I used to read through all of my studies and everything, but I learned it so I applied them from a very practical aspect of it, as in whatever I read through those books, whatever I went, so I went through those concepts. And then what happened is that the 5th time when I appeared for CAT, I scored a higher percentile in verbal than that of quant. So the bottom line is that when things are not working for you, you don't have to constantly repeat and do these things again and again in the same fashion and expect a different result. That doesn't happen. And maybe you need to take a pause, reflect, and then finally come back at things that you want to do. That might change the things for you, because that is something that has happened for me as well in the past. And that is something which is just one example. In product, where I work, I have to always come out with a different solution, or let's say a different thought process. And if I constantly think about a problem with just one single mindset, most likely I won't get the answer. So it requires me to reflect. It requires me to go back and think from a very different angle, different aspect. Maybe talk to those people with whom I have not spoken, even though I'm not expecting answers from them. Once I do that, I get an understanding, okay, this is what might work. And a lot of times these kind of solutions have actually helped us more than that of the solution that we would have gotten straight through our hats.
I think we get another mantra for today for all the aspirants.
Yeah.
But as you said, Vijay, that you had appeared 5 times for CAT. So like I shall consider this as a slight struggle for you, because you were like pretty ambitious about it, but again 5 times you have to do it. But so like what kept you motivated through this thing? Because a lot of people give up like after 1 or 2 attempts. Why didn't you give up?
Yeah, I think that's a good question actually. So your fundamental reason for what you're doing has to be very solid whenever you are appearing for something. Okay, so if your fundamental reason is there, then the things that you do that basically don't change. So if you are in double mind, as in you want to do a job change, or you want to get into CAT, or you want to do an M.Tech, or you want to do something else, then what will happen is that you'll keep swaying between one of the 3 options, and eventually whatever gives you an incremental benefit, as an incremental thought process, you will kind of go ahead with that, right? And in my case, at least that thought process was very clear for me. I wanted to be at a tier 1, tier 2 college, because I had spoken to a lot of people who were doing their MBAs, and I was inspired by their journey. So a lot of people who were working with me or who were studying with me in my college, they also went through some of these great colleges. And when I used to speak with them, I always used to get that vibe that this is something that I who I want to be, and this is something who I would want to be at any stage. And which is where I realized that at least for me, my foundation is that I have to be there and look for networks, look for connecting with these amazing professors, amazing people, and then build on to things. So it was not, so I never thought about it from the monetary aspect, or from an aspect which typically drives a lot of people, that if you do an MBA, you will get a lot of money out of it, or if, let's say, if you do an MBA, that is something that you should do because everyone else is doing it. It happened to me because just the sheer idea of being in the library of my MBA college, just the sheer idea of speaking with professors and doing projects with them and having long conversations with them, that excited me so much that I could not think of anything else. So your foundation has to be absolutely fantastic. So if I talk about even today, I still feel that I should go back, I should take a break and go back to that place again and do something about it. And I'm so passionate about being in college and being in those libraries again. And the people who have studied with me, they can be a testimony of this conversation that I'm having right now here. So that foundation has to be absolutely clear. And this applies to not just doing an MBA, but also after an MBA as well. Now, if you are looking for a job change, you look for what is your foundational question. If you are looking for an incremental, let's say 15-20% of hike, then you will always see yourself in a different mindset. You might end up being in a company or in a place you did not like, but you just accepted it, and then you are looking for a different job altogether. But if you are looking at it from that fundamental aspect, that if you go to this place, you are going to learn this thing, and this is where it will, and this is how it fits into the plans that you have created for yourself. Mm-hmm. That is where, even if, let's say, you are getting a 15% hike or a 50% hike or a 100% hike, you will actually be very happy and satisfied with whatever you have chosen for yourself. So set a very strong foundation, and then believe in yourself that you can execute it well.
I think the willpower is everything. Where there's a will, there is a way. I think we summarized it to that. So again, thank you so much for that amazing, like a snippet of your journey. So we are almost at the end of our segment today, Vijay. It was lovely having you. So Vijay, like, what are your, your personal tips to the, all the freshers or the work ex people who are now planning to join this MBA journey and the PGDM journey? So what is your one tip that you think they should follow that can help them?
So number one tip that I have is, come with a fresh or an open mind. That's the only thing that I can say, because when you have that open mind, you can basically do anything that you want, from the college. And a lot of time, we come to college with that mindset that, I want to become an iBanker, or I want to get into the top consulting company, or I want to get into, the top marketing role. So that is something that is coming from our pre-MBA mindset. Okay, once you go through the college, there will be a lot of things, that will happen to you, provided you open yourself and allow those things to happen. And I have seen remarkable shifts in a lot of people and in their career, and they are doing perfectly well because, they were open to things, open to ideas, open to learn new things. When you, go with a specific mindset, so that mindset kind of, come to us naturally, specifically when we are engineers. At least it is not that big of a problem for the people who are non-engineers. So what happens specifically for the engineers is that we are hardwired in a fashion that we have to find and get that one result. In similar fashion, we tend to start thinking of MBA in that fashion, as in it is a converging thing. MBA is not. MBA is a divergent thing where you come, explore ideas, and see what is it that fits for yourself, even though you have a certain sense of what exactly are you going to like. Okay, when you say that I want to become only a finance person, then you keep marketing aside and you leave that wonderful opportunity of learning how the business is done. When you think that marketing is the only thing that I want to do, you keep finance aside. What that does is that it kind of you kind of lose the opportunity to learn a lot of things which are critical to business. How maybe the finance aspect of it kind of takes care of those problems, like how P&L is handled. Even if, let's say, you are in a marketing role, once you will be working in a company, you'll have to understand what a P&L look like. How do you handle P&L? So it never goes away. Similar thing is for the people who are into finance. For them also, they have to understand how business happens, how business works. If they don't understand the basic aspect of how business works, then they lose the sight to do business, sight to be in a corporate world, right? So be open. If you are open, those wonderful things will happen to you. You will realize that there has been a true paradigm shift in your career.
Thank you so much. That was very well versed and it was very well said. Thank you so much for that amazing tip. For the, on behalf of all the aspirants of MBA and PGDM. And lastly, Vijay, like, what are your thoughts on Grow Junction, like the work they are doing?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. So I have not, gone through a lot of things that they have been doing, but with the kind of profile that I saw for them on LinkedIn as well as on their website, I feel that this specific area has a lot to offer. If I talk about what students come with when it comes to their MBA versus what they should have come with, so there is a lot of gap, and I'm really happy that there is someone like Grow Junction is actually filling that gap.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much on behalf of the entire Grow Junction team, Vijay. It was lovely to have you on board, and with that, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us. Thank you so much, Vijay.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and thank you, Aishman, for having me here. Good luck to all the aspirants.